This NFL Super Wildcard Weekend Player Props edition of the Propcast on the Sports Gambling Podcast Network is brought to you by Underdog Fantasy. Sign up with promo code MACHINE to get a 50% deposit bonus of up to $1,000.
It is he throws deep downfield. It's going to be caught by Metcalf.
Welcome everyone to the Propcast, part of the Sports Gambling Podcast Network. NFL playoffs officially here starting on Saturday, and we've got you covered with our player props for the Super Wild Card Weekend. We'll give you, of course, our player props, discuss some honorable mentions, give you our touchdown scores, and then we'll wrap up the episode with our best bets and an Underdog Fantasy entry. But joining me here on this episode for the Super Wildcard player props to give out, I've got my guy here with me. Of course, it's ChrisBeCappinn. Chris, what's going on, my man? We are officially here at the NFL playoffs.
We are, what a time to be alive, man. What a time to be alive. I know I say this all the time. You referenced it a couple times as well, but it literally feels like, maybe a month ago that we were talking about divisional previews and how much we like Derrick Henry to go over his rushing touchdown prop. And now we're here, we are here live and in the flesh. And we brought along with us both of our favorite teams as well. We got a little Texans, we got a little Commanders, man. So of course I'm super excited to be here as I always am. But this episode feels even a little more special,
Yeah, 100%. Now both of our teams playing on Wild Card Weekend, so it should be a fun weekend of football here for us to watch. And definitely excited, man. It should be a fun postseason here in the NFL. But like I mentioned, we'll get into our player props here, of course, on this episode. But before we do get into that, like I mentioned, NFL playoffs are here. Make sure you guys tune in with the Sports Gambling Podcast, the Mothership Show with Sean and Kramer, for all of your NFL picks and your props, of course. All right, Chris, let's get into it here, man. Let's get into our player props. I'll let you lead it off. Player prop number one for Super Wildcard Weekend. Where are you taking us?
Man, it was tough. It's a lot to like. I feel like we got typically at this time of the year, you got the best quarterbacks. So I'll say one quarterback for honorable mention and try to narrow it down to other two. But I'm looking at Justin Herbert, if in the game against your Houston Texans this week. I like his pass completions in this game. The number is sitting right now at 30.5, minus 120 over on Caesar. So it's a little bit of juice attached to it that you will have to lay if you also like Justin Herbert in this spot. But I think it's a really good spot. I'm just looking at, more so what they've been able to do with J.K. Dobbins in the backfield. And it doesn't feel like too much. And when I think about your Houston Texans defense, I also think about a team that's doing pretty good at limiting the pass and the rush for the most part. But I'm looking at Herbert. He's only played in one game so far in his postseason career. He did have 25 completions on 43 attempts a few years ago. But more so recently, and this is one of the things that kind of jumped off the page to me. We know the Chargers to be a team that plays hard-nosed football. Harbaugh likes to run the ball. We know that. But I'm looking at Justin Herbert specifically, on his pass completions over the last few games. And he's just flying up and over this number. So the completions are set at, not the completions, the attempts, which I also like the completions as well. But the attempts are sitting at, like I said, 30.5. He's gone up and over the number in 4 straight games. Last week, they needed to win against the Raiders, and he had 36 completions. 2 weeks ago, it was against New England. He had 38 completions. Against Denver, which we know Denver is stout against the rush. I'm going to talk a little bit more about them in a few minutes to come, but also 31 completions, 31 pass attempts, I'm sorry. And then against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers as well, 33 completions, pass attempts in that game. He did finish on the hook against Kansas City, only having 30. But I don't think he's going to hook us in this spot. Like last 5 games, he's up and over the number. Just kind of crushing it. And it feels like it's a buy low spot for him here, just because we think about, like I said, this Chargers offense as being an offense that's led, with them running the football. I just think that he's going to have to use his arm a little bit more in this spot, So I'm going Justin Herbert up and over his 30.5 pass attempts. 30.5 pass attempts in this game, thinking that he does have to air it out here,
Yeah, when you're going to be trailing by multiple touchdowns in this game, he's going to have to throw the football here against the Texans. But yeah, I think the run defense should be improved in this game here. I'm not sure what you're going to get, like you mentioned, out of J.K. Dobbins and Gus Edwards, if he's able to go in this game or not for the Chargers. I know we've gotten Christian Harris back. Will Anderson Jr. is a full participant in practice, so having those guys on the defensive side to really slow down the rushing attack of the Chargers, which will probably then again force them to throw the football in this game here. So, yeah, you mentioned the numbers there. Quarterbacks have been throwing the football against the Texans. I'm not really going to count the last 2 weeks, but Dolphins, Tua had 41 for Patrick Mahomes against the Texans, 55 for, I believe that was, Cooper Rush in that game. So, yeah, hopefully that the Texans are out in this game, maybe a double-digit lead. Maybe, they're having to throw the football, trying to come from behind in the end, and that's what gets over this prop here for Justin Herbert. So, Justin Herbert over on his pass attempts here in this games against the Texans. Chris, I liked a couple quarterback props here as well. I'll save another one for honorable mentions, but the favorite one I do like is going to be Josh Allen on his rushing yards. The number's at 42.5 in this game, and they are playing, of course, the Denver Broncos here this weekend on Sunday, the first game on Sunday between those two teams. But, we take a look at what Justin Herbert has done in the playoffs when it comes to running the football. He hasn't shied away from that. The number right now is sitting at 42.5 for for Josh Allen. But in specific, Chris, when we look at what he's done in the wild card game, and this dates back to the 2020 season. So he's played in 5 career games in the wild card weekend. And in those games, he's rushed the football for 92 yards against the Texans, 54 against the Colts, 66 against the New England Patriots. He only had 20 against the Dolphins. But then last year against the Pittsburgh Steelers, he had 74 rushing yards in that game. So in the 4 of the 5 career games that he's played in the wild card game, Chris, he's crushed this number of 42.5. So I think that's going to continue in this game here. I know the Denver Broncos led the league in sacks this season. And if you take also look at their rush defense this season against the particular in running backs, they were really good. They only allowed 78 rushing yards per game on 3.86 yards per carry. So I'm not thinking that James Cook will be a big factor in this game, but I do think Josh Allen will, in fact, be the guy as far as racking up the rushing yards this season for the Buffalo, or I should say in this game for the Buffalo Bills here. And just taking a look at some of the guys that they have faced as far as scrambling quarterbacks, it wasn't very many throughout the season. Anthony Richardson did have 46 against them. And really that was the only quarterback that got more than 43 rushing yards against them. But they really didn't play a lot of rushing quarterbacks this season. Lamar was there. He had 6 for 6. Anthony Richardson, like I mentioned, but other than that, not really much here. So I'm going to trust Josh Allen here, Chris, to say all that. Over 42.5 rushing yards for Josh Allen against the Denver Broncos.
I mean, I was looking into the matchup as well, and you kind of laid it out. I told you I was going to talk a little bit about that rush defense. And I mean, it's just led to a ton of complete pass attempts, if it's what my, what I saw when I was looking into my notes and I was kind of handicapping the game. The Denver defense is so elite against the rush. I mean, we haven't, I don't think we've given it enough just due because we don't play a lot of player props against Denver and in Denver games in general. But the pass attempts for the opposing quarterback, is actually 35.5, north of 35.5, which is the third most in the NFL. So what you're seeing is that Josh Allen is going to drop back a lot more in this game than hand the ball off to James Cook. And I absolutely agree with that. And if he drops back more, that's going to lead to more rush attempts as well, especially if they're putting pressure on him. So this one makes a ton of sense. If I actually got Josh Allen on my honorable mention list, which, I mean, he doesn't deserve to be on anybody's honorable mention list, but I got him on my honorable mention list for a player prop later that we'll talk about. But I like the look on Josh Allen here for sure.
All right, let's keep it moving here. Get us to your next player prop. Chris, what do you got?
So, all right, we're going running back, and I'd be remiss, without mentioning one of my guys. We don't make the playoffs often. I feel like I kind of want to bet on my Commanders. If it's only been about, 15, 16, 17, 25, 37 year. So I'm looking at Austin Eckler, up and over. I'm combining his rushing and receiving yards. I'm putting them together. He's been a do-it-all workhorse for us. Has a lot of playoff experience. He's a veteran in the locker room for us, specifically on the offensive side of the football, especially with a rookie quarterback out there. So you just go back and look at Austin Eckler. He's been crushing it, man. He's up and over. His rushing and receiving together is it opened at about 35.5. It's actually up to 41 on a couple books, but 40.5 is available at -110 over on Fanatics. So that's where I snagged this one at. On the full season, well, actually, just going back to just the last 10 games, and granted, you could throw out, like you kind of said, earlier about the Houston Texans game. You can kind of throw away the last game, but looking at Austin Eckler, even with that, he's up and over the number in 8 of his last 10 games combined rushing and receiving. We know that he's a dual threat. We know that he has a pretty good matchup against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers that can kind of give it up to running backs. And he's faced this team once earlier this season. It was actually the first game of the season. I'll never forget it. We got smoked, and I thought the season was already lost. they beat the brakes off of us in Tampa Bay. And but he still went up and over the number. He combined rushing and receiving for 62 yards in that game. And I do like the matchup a lot. Dual threat, ability to be able to run the football while also, play making. Has some of the best hands in the NFL for, a running back out of the backfield. Think that there could be a lot of jitters for Mr. Daniels this week that could also lead to him, having to dump it off a little bit more and play a little bit more, complacent football, which hopefully we can keep the ball out of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers here. That's what I'm hoping for. But yeah, Austin Eckler, really, really great spot this week. I like him a lot. Like I said, he's going up and over the number in 8 of the last 10 games. And on the road, he typically performs pretty well as well. He's actually hit this in 7 of his last 10 road games as well. And when he goes over, he's way over. You look at the Philadelphia game, he had 96 yards combined a couple weeks ago, 83 yards against the Giants combined, against Baltimore, 68 yards combined, against Cincinnati, 57 yards combined. So I think we get a buy low number here. I'm expecting this to close definitely north of 40.5. So I snagged the 40.5 for Austin Eckler, thinking that he has a big role in this game against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers this weekend.
Yeah, I think for Eckler, I don't want to say you trust. I don't think trust is the right word, but you mentioned the veteran status that he has, right? And I think that in a playoff game where the circumstances are a little bit different, right? The intensity is a little bit more up. Every play matters. So I feel like that Jaden Daniels not going to take those huge chances down the field where you have Austin Eckler that's, like you mentioned, throughout his entirety of his, not only this season, but also his career, right? A guy that can run the football and also be a pass-catching running back. And I think that he's going to be a safety valve for a guy like Jaden Daniels in this game here. So you mentioned he's done it 8 out of his last 10 games that he's played in for the Commanders. I think it's a good opportunity for him, who's going to be refreshed in this game here to really pose a challenge to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers defense. I think this is going to be one of those games, or one of the few games, I should say, that might be a little bit more higher scoring than the other ones this weekend. All right, Chris, before we do get into my next player prop here, let me tell everyone about what we're talking about right now. Playoffs. Yeah, we're talking about the playoffs. Believe it or not, it's already that time of year for the NFL season. And get in on the action at DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of the NFL. Scoring touchdowns is key to winning in the playoffs, and you can score big by betting on them at DraftKings, the #1 place to bet touchdowns. Ready to place your first bet? Try betting on something simple like a player to score 6 Go to DraftKings Sportsbook app and make your picks. Hey, I do like actually Jaden Daniels to find the end zone this week for the Washington Commanders. Currently on DraftKings for Jaden Daniels to find the end zone is currently sitting at plus 185. Again, odds are subject to change when it does come to these odds. New DraftKings customers can bet $5 and get $200 in bonus bets instantly. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app and use code SGP. That's code SGP for new customers to get $200 in bonus bets instantly when you bet just $5. Only on DraftKings Sportsbook. The crown is
Gambling
yours.
problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. In New York, call 877-8-HOPENY or text HOPENY 467-369. In Connecticut, help is available for problem gambling. Call 888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org. Please play responsibly. On behalf of Boot Hill Casino and Resort in Kansas, 21 and over. Age and eligibility varies by jurisdiction. Void in Ontario. Bonus bets expire 168 hours after issuance. For additional terms and responsible gaming resources, see dkng.co/audio.
All right, let's keep it rolling here, Chris. I'll get into my next player prop here for wildcard weekend. Let's see, where do I want to go with this one? There's a few running backs that I do like this weekend, I should say. But I'm gonna go to the game. Let me get my wide receiver one because I'm gonna take a page out of your book here, Chris. I like AJ Brown in this matchup against the Green Bay Packers on his receptions. The number's at 5.5 right now. But AJ Brown's been a guy and a player that has thrived in zone coverage. And I think that's what a lot of what the Packers play. Yeah. You take a look at that first matchup in that first game of the regular season in Brazil, where it was an absolute shootout. He had a big game in that game. 5 receptions, 119 receiving yards. But when it comes down to the playoffs, we know that the stars shine. And I think this is the opportunity here for A.J. Brown to really thrive here and have a big game for the Philadelphia Eagles. I think this could also be one of the games that may be a little bit higher scoring. But over the last, let's just say, I'm not going to put anything into the game against the Dallas Cowboys because they were going to rest their starters in that game, were the Eagles. But prior to that, against your Commanders, he had 8 receptions on 15 targets. Against the Steelers, he had 8 receptions, 11 targets. Against the LA Rams, 6 for 7. So I know he hasn't gotten over this number a lot this season, but I think when it matters the most now, when you're trying to win this game, that you want to go to your best players. And I think that's what Jalen Hurts is going to do here with A.J. Brown. And just kind of looking at his playoff game log in his career for A.J. Brown, 6 receptions in the Super Bowl when they played the Chiefs. He had 6 in the wild card game against the Baltimore Ravens when he was with Tennessee. So again, I think that A.J. Brown does show up in a big way in this game here. I know they have Saquon in the backfield there, but I think that they're going to have to also throw the football a little bit more. What better way to target and get your guy going like A.J. Brown? So I'll go A.J. Brown over 5.5 receptions in this game here, Chris.
Yeah, I'm never on an AJ Brown under. It's for a couple different reasons. One, he's just a really great receiver. We know what he can do out there on the football field. The Green Bay Packers are 24th as far as receptions allowed, and a big reason for that, is that they're giving up 4 yards a pop on the ground, which is 3rd in the NFL. They're giving up 99 yards per game, which is 7th in the NFL. And we're gonna need, the Jalen. We know Jalen Hurts went through, practice. He's gonna play. Be his first game back, I think, since the 22nd when he suffered the concussion against my Commanders. But yeah, I mean, the other reason, here's the big cherry on top is what if Jalen Hurts doesn't throw in the ball? Could you imagine the pouting that's gonna go on the sideline here from this guy? Because he knows how good he is and he knows he needs the football in order to be good. So yeah, those 2 reasons, if he's a good receiver, it's a really good matchup for him against Green Bay as well. I like the 5.5. If I would only be, I'm probably gonna add this. I'll ride with you here. I like Jalen Green, AJ Green in this spot.
All right, let's get over to your third player prop, Chris. What do you got?
All right, so my wide receiver, and this is I feel like these aren't like going to be popular plays. I don't think Austin Eckler is going to be a super popular play. This guy I don't think is going to be a super popular play either. But I'm looking at Quentin Johnston, his reception prop, the kind of going back to what you were saying. I'm just thinking that they've kind of felt the chemistry between him and Justin Herbert. Dude's been on a tear recently. He's coming off a game against a very poor defense. Let me start by saying that. I know that the Raiders are a horrible defense, but he had 14 targets and 13 receptions in that game last week against the Raiders, But before that, it's not predicated on that, even though that shows that, in a game where it's do or die, that, Justin Herbert definitely trusted him a lot. But even before that, if we go back to his last 4 games, they've seemed to, like I said, just really develop a good chemistry between him and Herbert. He had 5 receptions on 8 targets a couple weeks ago, 2 weeks ago. Before that, he had 5 receptions on 10 targets. Then he also has another game in there where he had 5 receptions on 7 targets. One game where he did only get to 3 receptions with 5 targets. But that game he finished on the hook against Denver. So the production has been there, the targets have been there. I know that Justin Herbert has a lot of weapons over there with McConkey and what he's been able to do in his rookie season, but there just seems to be a very, very good chemistry here. If I don't want to fade this, I see that it's sitting at minus 125 with, implied probability says that, they have to, I think that they're going to have to pass the ball and you guys will be able to slow them down from being able to run the football with J.K. Dobbins as well. So I'm thinking Quentin Johnston, if I like him a lot in this spot, over 3.5 receptions, something that he's done in 4 of his last 5 games. And I think they kind of keep it going here.
Yeah, it kind of like correlates with what you liked about the over on Herbert's pass attempts, right? I just feel like that in this game in specific with the Texans and the Chargers, Chris, that it's I think whichever quarterback doesn't have the mistakes and is able to be efficient in this game, I think that team is going to win this game. And I'm not taking anything from Joe Mixon, what he's been able to do this season. But it just feels like when we watch this Texans team in particular, that if CJ Stroud's having a great game, that the Texans are going to have a lot of success on the offensive side. And you mentioned Quentin Johnston, right? A lot of the attention is going to be on a guy like Ladd McConkey because he's having a fantastic rookie season, right? I mean, his name would be in that conversation for Rookie of the Year if it wasn't for some of these other guys like the Brock Bowers of the world and the Bo Nix of the world and Jaden Daniels, like your guy, is absolutely crushing it in the rookie seasons. But this number, I think it's right, but
Malik Neighbors.
Yeah, Malik Neighbors is another name, right? And I think with McConkey being on the West Coast and maybe, I know he's in LA market, but football maybe not as prominent in LA as it is maybe a Laker town, and you could attest to that. But I think that this is the opportunity for Johnson to really step up. And I know he's had a lot of issues throughout his career, and in particular this season, about dropping passes. But I think now we're starting to see, number one, the targets is what's sticking out about Johnston, and that he's absolutely crushed this number in for the last 5 games that he played in for this Charged offense. So yeah, I'd be with you on this before I would be against you for Quentin Johnston here, Chris. All right. For my last player prop here, there's a couple of different ways we could have gone with this, but and I'll save some of it for honorable mentions, but I'm going to go back to what's worked for us last season and this season. And I think that he's going to have to be a big part of this is going to be Jaylen Warren receiving yards, Chris, out of the backfield for the Pittsburgh Steelers. The number is sitting at 20.5 right now. We've watched this Steelers team, I think, down the stretch that they just didn't look like the same team they were at the beginning of the season, right? And when Russell Wilson took over as a starting quarterback for the Steelers team, that he looked like that, all right, that monkey was off of his back. But they've struggled a little bit down the stretch. I know they didn't have George Pickens for a couple of those games there, but I think this is going to be another game where, again, if Baltimore gets out to a lead, I think they're going to be forced to throw the football. And I think that's going to have to also incorporate the backfield, in specific Jaylen Warren. And we've talked a lot about Jaylen Warren on this show here about his receiving yards. And I know that he hasn't gotten it done over the past several games for the Pittsburgh Steelers, Chris. or I should say the last game against the Bengals, but prior to that against the Chiefs, 41 receiving yards, 44 against his Baltimore Ravens team. He also had 27 earlier this season against the Baltimore Ravens. So in both the matchups this season against the Baltimore Ravens, he got over 20 and a half receiving yards, but he had games in there, 25 against the Cleveland Browns, 55 against the Cincinnati Bengals earlier this season, 27, 29 against your Commanders. So I think he's going to get the targets. The magic number I'm looking at for Jaylen Warren as far as targets goes is that neighborhood of 4 to 5, because I know he's a guy that can catch the football and he has the ability to make defenders miss and break tackle. So I don't think it's a big thing for him to do here, get over 21 or more receiving yards here, Chris. So I'll wrap it up with my third player prop here. Jaylen Warren over 20 and a half receiving yards.
I like it, I really, really like it because one of the things I had on my honorable mention list, which we'll talk about in just a second, is very, very correlated with this. And we know that, he's the not just the pass catcher running back, but he can also rush the football as well. And whenever you're playing against Baltimore, we've talked about this and made so much money. Well, I think you started at the beginning of the season, just taking these running backs, because that Baltimore is not going to give up a lot of rushing yards, right? It's just not something that they do. So you're going to find yourself back there having to pass the ball a few more times. And if that pressure's coming, and we know Pittsburgh can put a lot of pressure on the quarterback, it's a lot of dump downs, So Jaylen Warren makes a ton of sense here. I like this look a lot.
All right, so that is 3 player props each here, Chris. Let's get into some honorable mentions here, my man, and then we can get into touchdown scores here. But what are we looking at as far as that's on your short list that you want to get to the window with?
I want to look up one thing really quickly, So I'll let you go first, but I got 2 that I want to share.
Yeah, so the first one I am going to play, and was going to mention as my quarterback prop. It was 1A and 1B, but Matthew Stafford, Chris, passing yards to go over 240 and a half passing yards. And we talked a lot about throughout the season how the Minnesota Vikings rush defense was fantastic. I know they've stumbled over the past couple of weeks to finish off the season, but I think that this is an opportunity for Matthew Stafford, who's had a lot of success, at least passing the football and racking up the yards in his playoff career, to get over this number. This number opened up around, I want to say 237 and a half, 238 and a half. It's up to 240 and a half and trending in the right direction here. But I like Matthew Stafford in this spot here to go over his passing yards. I know the last 2 weeks, quarterbacks didn't get it done. Jordan Love in the last game, which was Jared Goff. But they really didn't need him to do it. I'll throw one more out there for Matthew Stafford if you want to look at his interception prop as well. As bad as and this may be counterintuitive, but if you take a look at the Vikings pass defense, they give up a lot of yards, but they're also a ball hawking defense. They had 24 interceptions this season, Chris, in totality. In the final 6 weeks of the regular season, the 4 of the 6 quarterbacks that they faced, they intercepted them multiple times. So I'm just asking Matthew Stafford to get or throw 1 here. So I think that is something I'm also going to get to the window with. That number is currently sitting at over half a interception at -110 for Matthew Stafford on DraftKings, but definitely shop around, get the best number. But I do like that. Cooper Kupp over 4.5 receptions. I thought that number was very, very conservative for a guy like Cooper Kupp. I know it's a Puka Nacua show over with the Rams there, but for Mr. All Reliable, that we know a guy that is going to get targets in this game as well, I do like Cooper Kupp over 4.5 receptions. I'll start with those 2 first. The Rams there, Matthew Stafford, Cooper Kupp, and then if you want to get into yours, I can give a couple more that I'm looking at, Chris.
Yeah, no, I like those a lot. If I was actually looking at Puka Nacua over his receiving yards, I think it's like 88.5. And you mentioned, right, like it's the defensive matchup. That they're gonna have to pass the football whenever you're playing, against a really tough defense like they will be this weekend, facing the Minnesota. I was about to say Timberwolves, Minnesota Vikings. So I like both of those, and like you mentioned, that's a pretty low number. Cooper Kupp, what he's been able to do in the postseason, the chemistry that they've had, maybe he becomes, even more reliable target for, them in that offense this week. I was looking at, the one that really stuck out to me was Josh Allen, up and over his passing touchdowns. This number is even right now at plus 100 right now. So you can pretty much double up your money with Josh Allen passing for 2 touchdowns. Why don't we hear over in 10 of his 17 games this season? So 59% he's cashed the over on. If he's at home, that turns into 75%. He's cashed 6 of 8 games at home. He's thrown for at least 2 touchdowns. And when you mentioned it, at the top of the show, Denver's defense is allowing the second fewest rushing yards per attempt and third fewest rushing yards per game at just 96.4. They're forcing teams to pass the football 35.5 times per game, which is, like I said, top 5. So if I'm thinking that Josh Allen's going to have to pass the football, he's probably going to pass the football for a few touchdowns here. That wouldn't surprise me at all with him being, the MVP, him having the MVP kind of candidate season that he's had so far. So I like Josh Allen passing touchdowns over 1.5. And then the other one, which really aligns with what you were talking about, is Russell Wilson up and over his pass completions. If this number comes in at 18.5, and I'm looking at it, he's over on the full season, he's over in 6 of the 11 games that he's played so far. We know that Baltimore forces teams to pass the football more than any other team in the NFL. They force teams to pass the football 36 times a game. So I'm thinking that, he should be able to get to 19 pass completions in this game. I'm looking at the head-to-head matchup. He faced them twice already this season. He passed for 23 times in the first matchup and 22 times in the second matchup, one of those being in Baltimore, of course, one of them being at home in Pittsburgh. So you mentioned Pickens being back. I just think that they're going to have to, if they find some success and are able to keep this game close, I do think it's going to be because it's going to be the strength of Russell Wilson's arm here. So those were the 2 top for me as far as why quarterbacks go. And I do kind of feel like, this is when the quarterback shine. If Russell Wilson had a lot to prove this season, especially with the way that they, kind of started the season with him being on the sideline and then him being inserted, back into the starting quarterback position and not being a drop-off at all. So Russell Wilson over his 18.5 pass completion, Josh Allen over his 1.5 passing touchdowns were things that I had on my short list here, for honorable mentions for myself.
The Russell Wilson one is making me scratch my head on why the number's so low.
Trying to figure it out as well.
Yeah, because like you mentioned with the 2 games that he played head-to-head against the Ravens this season, 23 for 36, 22 for 33. What's the pass attempts number? Do you see that for him? Because I feel like we know how good the Baltimore Ravens rush defense has been this season. I got tricked by Najee in the final week of the regular season, Chris, taking the over on his rushing yards. It looked good in the first half, honestly, but I just wasn't able to get there with it.
Or 30.5, is that number though? Not to cut you off, but 30.5 is his pass attempts. 30.5 looks like it's sitting at plus 105 right now.
Yeah, so I think if we believe that this is going to be a game where, and the books are expecting this to be at least at some point, a 2-possession lead for the Steelers. Sorry, for the Rams. What am I saying? The Ravens at minus 9.5. That it goes into what we talked about, that they're going to have to throw the football to play catch up, and I think that's where it is going to. Those numbers are going to start racking up and getting towards the overside of things for Russell Wilson. So I'm going to dig a little bit more into this one. I'm intrigued by this as well. The number just seems low a little bit here. What else did you mention?
We've been talking about this all season, and we've been cashing more than we haven't been playing quarterbacks over their pass attempts and sometimes completions as well, versus this Baltimore Ravens defense that forces teams to pass the football more than any other team. You can get a juice 29.5 at minus 125, but it looks like it's the best number right now is over on FanDuel at plus 100. So it is coming down now, but it just seems like it makes too much sense. Maybe we just get into it before everybody else will, and this will close a little bit worse odds. But yeah, I like Russell Wilson over his completions, or like you said, over his attempts, and then Josh Allen passing touchdowns over 1.5 at even.
Yeah, I think Josh Allen, he knows that he has the monkey on his back about at least getting to the championship game, not let alone the Super Bowl right now, but at least to the conference championship game. And I think that a lot of that is going to be on his shoulders. throughout the postseason and willing his team at least to the AFC Championship game. So, I really not be able to talk you off of the Josh Allen one. I think, for time's sake, we could probably sit here for hours and just talk. I know we didn't talk a lot about Bo Nix. Chris, I also am looking at his passing yards in this game. Again, another spread that's 8.5. Thinking that the Denver Broncos at some point will be trailing outside of a touchdown, that he's going to have to throw the football. He's got the weapons, right? He's really showed us in his rookie season that he's more than capable. And I think that if you want to look at his passing yards to go over in this game against the Bills, I think that's worth a look. The one more I did want to mention on the Denver Broncos side, I've talked about this a lot on the Propcast throughout the regular season, is running backs receiving yards against the Buffalo Bills. I'm not sure if I do trust Javonte Williams to get it done for me. Certainly is able to and has the capability of doing it, but just the question marks surrounding who's going to get the snap counts and the looks and the targets and the rush attempts for the Denver Broncos has me scratch my head a little bit. The number isn't a big one. I think it was like 13.5 for his receiving yards for Javonte Williams of the Denver Broncos. So that was another one I was looking at. And the last one I'll leave you with, you gave out your homer play. I'm looking at either Nico Collins anytime touchdown or his longest reception to go over, Chris. So I'll leave you with those. Javonte Williams receiving yards, and then if you have any thoughts on Nico.
Yeah, I think the Javonte Williams receiving yards makes a ton of sense, just because, like you said, Bo Nix is going to have to pass the football. And he's been passing the football. He's been slinging that thing. Now, granted, he's had a lot more success at home than he has on the road. If you're looking at just his passing yards in general, and how many yards he's actually passing for. But this makes a ton of sense, the Javonte Williams one. As far as who's the last one you just – your boy Nico. I can't – we'd be remiss without Mr. Nico. I was going to save him for anytime touchdown, but we can bring him up early, in the game of the season without Stephon Diggs. I'm not sure how you would want to fade Nico in this spot. I think he has a solid matchup. It's not the greatest matchup in the world, but I think he has a solid matchup, and I think he has a quarterback that's going to be looking for him and that's going to be relying on him heavily in this game, for you guys to be able to find some success as a 3-point home dog this week. So, yeah, love Nico. Longest reception over, or like we already, I guess you're kind of giving it out now, anytime touchdown as well. You're muted,
My bad. I think that's my first one of the season there. But all right, we'll put a pin. Yeah, we'll put a pin in that one for honorable mentions. Like I mentioned, we could probably sit here and just discuss every single game on honorable mentions on stuff that we are looking at. All right, Chris, before we get into touchdown scores for this weekend, let me tell everyone about Underdog Fantasy. Underdog Pick'em has one of the biggest menus, honestly, on all sports, whether it's college football, college basketball, MMA, NBA, NASCAR, NFL, of course. And you can now use Boost and Pick'ems in your entries as well over on Underdog Fantasy. Plus, Underdog Playoff Best Ball is now live. The Gauntlet Tournament. $2 million. That's right. You heard it here. $2 million in prizes up for grabs for just a $25 entry. So sign up with promo code MACHINE to claim your special pick and first time deposit offer up to $1,000 in bonus cash at underdogfantasy.com. Make sure you guys use that promo code MACHINE. All right, Chris, touchdown scores for this week, man. We've done really, I'm going to be honest, so we don't tout a lot about the success we have, but we've been actually crushing our touchdown scores, whether it's been Thursday Night Football or during the regular season. So I don't want to curse us. But what I will say, let's carry the momentum into the playoffs. How about that for our touchdown scores? So I'll let you lead it off, man. What are you looking at?
Yeah, a couple guys, Josh Jacobs, I think first and foremost, just because you get, and this is a really good week. We know that, for most people, maybe you're new to playoff football, but we know that, this is when we see unders, right? This is when we see unders. This is when we see defenses play their best games. So finding the end zone should be a little more difficult, right? We know that. However, some of these players, we're actually, some of those minus 145s, minus 150s right now, you can get some evens just because it's going to be a little bit more difficult to find the end zone. So I wanted to start by saying that Josh Jacobs, plus 105 over on FanDuel right now. I don't know if it's going to close at plus money, but he's been on fire. He's scoring 9 of his last 10 games, including multiple touchdown performances in there as well. You got an Eagles defense that's 20th in rush EPA, and they struggle against power backs like Josh. I was about to call him Brandon Jacobs. Josh Jacobs. So I like Josh Jacobs. I think he gets a heavy workload, specifically in the red zone this week. Mark Andrews is another guy that I like, plus 175 over on Hard Rock. He's been the go-to target for Lamar as of late, specifically in the red zone. 51.7% target share inside the 20-yard line this season. Scored in 8 of his last 10 games already as well against the Pittsburgh and scored against the Pittsburgh Steelers earlier this season. So I like Mark Andrews. I like Josh Jacobs. Got to go on the opposite side of the football of Josh Jacobs and look at Jalen Hurts. I know it's supposed to be his first game back since December the 22nd, but he's been a touchdown machine, specifically with a little tush push. He scored in 8 of his last 10 games, face a Packers defense that can struggle against mobile quarterbacks as well. So I think, his ability to be able to take off in both design runs and scrambles, little tush push, he gets in. You can get him at just 10 cent as well. So minus 110 over on FanDuel. And I'll leave Collins for you because we already kind of talked about him. But Mike Evans against my Commanders, it won't all be pretty if you're a Commander fan. Mike Evans is plus 105. If he's been a red zone machine for the Buccaneers, we know that. Scoring in 6 of his last 10 games. Commanders secondary is it's still questionable at times, man. Even with Lattimore being out there, I think Mike Evans continues to just marvel, if in this season picking up that $3 million contract incentive, and they got the good vibes going on over there because of that, leaving him in the game to get there. So we'll go Josh Jacobs plus 105, Mark Andrews plus 175, Jalen Hurts minus 110, Mike Evans plus 105 this weekend to find the end zone. What do you think about those? And let me know who you're betting on.
Yeah, so you mentioned a couple of guys that were on my list there as well, so I'm not going to regurgitate everything as well. I think that we're at that point of the season where we're just kind of sharing a mind on these touchdown scores. But yeah, Mike Evans, you're getting that plus odds. So that's always a bet. That's for sure. Again, shop around, get the best number of it for Mike Evans. I do like that. Talking about Jalen Hurts, I kind of want to go back and look at how many rushing touchdowns he's had in his playoff career, because I feel like that tush push is always live for Jalen Hurts. And a lot of times if you had Saquon Barkley for any time touchdown, they were down on the 1 yard line, you knew that don't do it. Yeah, that was going to be a tush push coming for one Jalen Hurts there. But yeah, you already mentioned Nico. I've been talking about Nico all week. The odds have moved a little bit currently over on DraftKings from plus 145 to plus 135. Some of these other games I think are going to be a lot bit higher scoring. So let me start with the Ravens and the Steelers game first. Derrick Henry's at minus 220. I think that he will find the end zone, but we didn't mention this, that Zay Flowers has officially been ruled out for the Ravens. He's officially out. So it's either going to be Rashad Bateman or Mark Andrews for me at plus 155, Chris. I'll be the first one to admit I was completely wrong about Rashad Bateman this season, because when we did our division previews, I took the under on his receiving yards. I
was right there with you, I was right there with you.
So that was one of my losses this season, but I like him at plus 155. I think it's a good opportunity for him to really step up this week for the wide receiving group there. Mark Andrews, I couldn't talk you off of that either. And then I think one of the higher scoring games, like we mentioned, you talked about with Commanders and Bucks. You already mentioned Mike Evans. I'll go with your guy, Jaden Daniels, plus 185 as well. I like him to find the end zone. And then Monday night football. It is officially Monday night, Vikings and Rams. Jordan Addison, man, the odds for him are now down to plus 130. That kind of tells you how involved he's been in the offense, because a lot of that attention does go to Justin Jefferson, but Jordan Addison at plus 130. And then Puka Nacua, man, plus 110. Anytime you're getting either Cooper Kupp or Puka Nacua at a plus odds, you definitely got to take advantage of it there. So those are the ones that I do like here for this week as far as touchdown scores for a wild card weekend.
Hey, real quick before we jump over. No, both of us kind of left this guy off. No Josh Allen. I see like minus 120.
Yeah. it makes sense. I mean, I like his rushing yards. So yeah, let's add him to the portfolio there. Plus or minus 120. I was thinking of doing like a scrambling quarterbacks touchdown parlay of Jaden Daniels, Lamar, Josh Allen, and I was thinking about Bo Nix, but I think those three for sure. If you want to do the square parlay of the touchdown scores or even round robin it, so I feel like those guys can find the end zone. So Lamar right now is sitting at plus 170 currently over on DraftKings to find the end zone. But yeah, I think that's a good call there. Josh Allen minus 120. If you want to go first touchdown score, he's tied for the shortest odds with James Cook at 5-1 to be the first touchdown score of this game. So that's kind of what the books are thinking there, Chris. So yeah, we'll add Josh Allen to the portfolio there. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, he's just been, just may win the MVP. And what if he loses the game and scores a touchdown? We might not be able to give out a Josh Allen prop on the on the show, a touchdown prop on the show, and look like idiots. So yeah, I think minus 120 is not as bad, like I said, because it's more difficult to find the end zone. But I mean, it's more difficult to find the end zone in the playoffs. It hasn't been more difficult for Josh Allen to find the end zone at all this season. So
that's a fact. All right. Let's get into best bets here, Chris. To wrap up the episode, then we'll quickly put together our Underdog Fantasy entry as well. Where are you taking us for your best bet?
Man, you know what? I've been thinking about this long and hard, man. I think we're going to Tampa. We're looking at Austin Eckler, man. Commanders, let's go. Hail to the Commanders. Austin Eckler up and over his 40.5 rush plus receiving yards. Like I said, this opened at 35.5. It's already being bet up. Some 41.5s out there as well, but 40.5 is available at minus 110. It's something that he's done in 9 of his last 11 games, 8 of his last 10, 7 of his last 9 on the road. He played against Tampa Bay earlier this season, had 62 rushing plus receiving yards. Definitely think he's going to be utilized as a dual threat running back here. So we will go Austin Eckler up and over 40.5 rush plus receiving yards. Best bet.
All right, man. Yeah, you got to give out at least a play that you like for your team. So I think Austin Eckler, besides all the homerism, I think it's a good opportunity for him, really. I think this is going to be one of the higher scoring games this week between the Commanders and the Buccaneers. Hopefully for Chris's sake, it's the reverse of what we saw in week 1. And maybe we're talking about the Commanders next week in the divisional round. But, good things are definitely coming towards the Washington Commanders side of things. And if you're watching live, you'll see Chris holding up take command for the Washington Commanders. Chris, for my best bet, we just talked about the guy at volumes, Josh Allen. I'm going to take the rushing yards to go over 42.5. I just think that, when it comes down to it, Josh Allen is just going to put this team on his back and just kind of will his way through the wild card weekend to the divisional round at minimum. Talked about how great the pass rush has been this season for the Denver Broncos. So again, if that pass rush is able to get into the backfield there, then I do believe that Josh Allen will take off in this game here. So hopefully, he's taken some quarterback knees at that end of the game there, that I'm not getting burned, because it happened to me with Patrick Mahomes plenty of times. But I think this is an opportunity where Josh Allen can at least get 50 plus rushing yards in this game against the Denver Broncos. So I'll give you that. Josh Allen over 42.5 rushing yards as my best bet for the Super Wild Card weekend, which leaves us one order of business here before we wrap it up. That is going to be our Underdog Fantasy entry for the Wild Card weekend. Again, if you haven't already opened an account or signed up for an account with Underdog, make sure you guys get over there, underdogfantasy.com. Make sure you use that promo code machine. You'll get a first-time deposit offer of up to 50% of up to $1,000. So again, go ahead over there, underdogfantasy.com. Make sure that promo code machine. All right, Chris. So we're gonna be homers on this Underdog Fantasy entry. So what I am gonna do, I'll let you pick one guy. If you want to go with Eckler, you want to go or another guy for your Commanders for our Underdog Fantasy entry. But I'm going to throw in Nico. I think I'm going to go with the longest reception for Nico Collins. as my entry. It's at 27. Actually, you know what? I'm going to throw in the targets. He's going to get the targets in the game. It's at 9.5. He's going to have double-digit targets in this game here, Chris. So I'm going to go higher, 9.5 targets for Nico Collins for the Texans. What do you want to go with? You want to go with Eckler for your Commanders, or you want to go another way?
Yeah, no, let's go Eckler. Eckler. Right. Let's go Eckler.
All right, so we'll go rush and receiving for Austin Eckler. Higher 41.5. I think we both like the Josh Allen. I'll leave it to you. You want to go Josh Allen?
No. Let's go Josh Allen. Let's go Josh Allen. You know, we can't leave off the potential MVP here.
Yeah, so I was going to mention, you want to go higher on his passing touchdowns, or you want to go higher on his rushing or receiving touchdown?
Let's go passing touchdowns. I talked about it. It was on my honorable mention list. He just needs 2. Gave out a lot of reasons why I think he goes up and over that number, you know, especially at home. I think he's up and over 75% of his games so far. At home. Yeah, 6 of his 8 games, he's had 2 passing touchdowns or more. 10 of 17 games he's played so far. Denver is going to force them to throw the football for sure. So I like him to get 2 touchdowns this week.
All right, there it is. I just put it in. So we'll go Austin Eckler, higher 41.5 rushing and receiving. We'll go Nico Collins, higher 9.5 targets. And then we'll go Josh Allen, higher 1.5 passing touchdowns. That is a 6x entry. To every $10 that you do put in, you'll get a return of $60. For the Underdog Fantasy entry here for the Super Wild Card weekend. All right, that's going to do it here for this edition for this Super Wild Card weekend Propcast. Definitely looking forward to the games this weekend here. Chris, anything else you want to mention before we get out of here?
Not at all, man. Enjoy the weekend. Enjoy the football. It's gonna be a great weekend. You know, I'm gonna go ahead and put it into the atmosphere right now. The tongue is powerful. Great weekend for bets. Great weekend for watching football in general. Also, just thought some prayers out to everybody that's impacted with what's going on over in California. That may, of course, be on the minds of the Chargers, but prayers and condolences for people that are losing things left and right. I see the Lakers game just got canceled, so just wanted to send that out as well, you know. But yeah, enjoyed the show today, and best of luck going to everybody on the action this weekend.
Yeah, 100%. Echoing everything Chris there mentioned going on in California with the wildfires. I know SGPN headquarters has been affected there as well. So, again, if you're out there, be safe. Our thoughts and prayers are with you. So hopefully, things do get better, but it's always safety and family first. And I think that's what we need to take care of here if you are in California. So, we'll leave it at that. All right, we'll be back next week for some more NBA Propcast and talking about the divisional round there as well for our player props. Look out for us then. Make sure you guys follow Chris over on Twitter at ChrisBeCappinn with 2 P's and 2 N's. You can follow me there as well at SportsNerd824. Till then, good luck with your bets. Let's break these books off, and always remember to let it ride.